What was life like in 19th century Memphis? Tonight on The Best Times, we journey back in time with a visit to three of the oldest houses in the city to prove that there's no place like home. And we'll examine why seniors are turning to acupuncture to ease their aches and pains. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. This year, Memphis is celebrating its 200th birthday. Not much is left standing to tell us what life was like in our hometown during the 19th century. But fortunately, a few homes along Adams Avenue, sometimes referred to as Millionaire's Row, have been restored to give us a glimpse into the early years of Memphis. Tonight, we take a tour of these homes, from modest middle-class dwellings to gilded Victorian-era mansions, to find out why there's no place like home. In the shadow of the steel and concrete of downtown Memphis sits a small white clapboard house. The McGivney House is unique because it is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, existing houses in Memphis. It takes its name from its owner, Eugene McGivney, an Irish immigrant.
He was a teacher in Pennsylvania during the 1820s, and he was there for about 5 years, and he saw an advertisement. They were looking for teachers in Memphis to help settle the rough and rowdy river towns. So he moved here and either built this house or moved into it in 1836.
When Eugene McGivney moved to Memphis, he settled in a town that was small and dirty. Only about 700 people lived here, and life was harsh. The streets were dirt, which turned to a quagmire when it rained. The constant flow of itinerant riverboat men meant that brothels flourished in downtown Memphis. And the lack of sanitary conditions in the city would eventually lead to a series of yellow fever epidemics. But on Adams Avenue, Eugene McGivney and his wife Mary led a very middle-class life.
This neighborhood was, obviously Mallory Neely's down the street, so we know that it was residential, but this part of the street was different, and there were other middle-class houses just like this one, and, restaurants and pubs and, things that a growing city would need.
Through the front door, which, by the way, is the original door to the house, you'll find two rooms.
Originally, it was just two rooms. It was a traditional form of British architecture called the hall and parlor design. And it was literally just a hall and a parlor and a bedroom. Mr. McGivney added on the second floor of the house pretty early on, we believe, to accommodate boarders, so another source of income for him. And then after the girls got a little bit older, they needed another bedroom for them, so they added on to the back of the house.
While much of the furniture you see is period correct, only a few pieces actually can be traced to the McGivney's ownership. One of those pieces is this schoolmaster's desk that Mr. McGivney used in his one-room schoolhouse on Court Square. There is an interesting story about this desk that comes from a 1930 newspaper article, which may or may not be true.
There is a lockable drawer underneath the desk, and the story was that the little boys, that his pupils, would have to carry pistols with them on their way to school to protect themselves from the wild animals and the Indians that roamed the streets of the city. But the story was that Mr. McGivney would collect the guns at the beginning of the school day and lock them in his drawer underneath his seat. And then at the end of the day, he would distribute them back to the students.
In the bedroom, there is a bureau that was used as an altar in the first Catholic Mass held in Memphis, in Eugene McGivney's parlor.
The first Catholic Mass was celebrated in this room. It was officiated by Father Stokes, who was a traveling priest, and he came here, and it was just him and Mr. McGivney and the McEwen family who lived down the street. A few months after that, Mary came here, and they were married in this room. So it was the first Catholic wedding. And then 9 months later, the first Catholic baptism. Their older daughter, Mary Agnes, was baptized here. And then the next year, in 1842, Kate, their daughter Kate, was born.
Mr. McGivney was a devout Catholic. Perhaps that explains his modest lifestyle, because you see, Eugene McGivney became a wealthy man here in Memphis.
He started investing in real estate. He had made enough money from teaching that he was able to purchase property downtown, including a cow pasture at Main and Union.
He was a shrewd investor. When he died, his net worth was put at roughly $50 million in today's currency. So why did a man who could build a mansion live in such a modest home?
Perhaps some of that can be attributed to his religious background. He was a very religious guy, a Catholic guy, and he didn't want to flaunt his wealth. He was just a modest individual.
This modest Memphian became a community leader and an alderman. In 1848, he led the fight to establish the first public schools in Memphis. He died at age 75 in the yellow fever epidemic of 1873. But his legacy lives on in the form of the church he helped found, St. Peter's Catholic Church, built next door to his house. In 1852, wealthy banker Isaac Kirtland bought 3 acres of land on what was then the outskirts of Memphis and built a 2-story home for his family. In 1883, a cotton merchant named James Columbus Neely bought the house and began the ornate renovations that have created the Mallory Neely house that we see today.
The collections, the furnishings, the interiors are all original to the house and the family. And so what we see in the house is as the Neelys had decorated it at the turn of the century. And it's one intact, authentic piece. It's not a conglomeration of sort of period or of the style of kind of era. They're the actual pieces. They're the actual, collections that the family had. So it's like they walked out down the street to go to church or something, and we get to step into their house and see how they lived.
It's remarkable to find any Victorian-era home with so many of its original fixtures intact.
I guess one of the most striking things is when you first come into the house, the entry doors themselves, the stained glass windows are from the World's Fair, from Chicago. And also when you walk into the entry room, the entry hall, which is the grand hall, this is where you in Victorian times you show your prominence, and it sets the tone for the house. It was a very public space, very elegant and opulent. You see up the grand staircase, the stained glass window on the landing. That also was purchased by the Neelys after the Chicago World's Fair.
The house has 25 rooms and approximately 16,000 square feet. The Italianate architecture and high Victorian style are evident everywhere. Look up and you'll see frescoes on the ceiling and elaborate plasterwork. That's not burl wood inlay on the doors, it's faux wood grain painting, which was very popular with the Victorians. The double parlor is filled with imported furniture and expensive carpets, all designed to impress visitors. 2 massive gaslight chandeliers hang from the ceiling, a remnant of the days before Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. And in one corner is an embroidered silk screen from China that the Neelys purchased at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904.
Each of the 4 panels represents one of the seasons of the year. And it's a teak wood frame. And that piece was actually chosen to be sent to the St. Louis World's Fair by the last Empress Dowager of China.
Portraits of James Neely and his wife overlook the dining room table with seating for up to 24 people. The family would dress for dinner and be served by a staff of 7. And the servants made sure the business of the house ran smoothly.
The house was heated by coal fireplaces, 20 coal fireplaces throughout the house. And that took a lot of work to keep all that going. And the rooms had servants' call buttons, bells, to push to have someone come and see what your need was. There's actually, there was a mechanism under the floor in the dining room where the master of the house could press it down with his foot to call someone to come to attend to the table.
Behind the main house is the servants' quarters. Prior to emancipation, this was the home to the house's slaves. Little is known about their names or their lives. The rooms upstairs are not as elegant as their downstairs counterparts. After the turn of the century, the Neelys' youngest daughter, Daisy, married cotton merchant Barton Mallory, and their family lived on the 2nd floor. Daisy's sister Pearl and her family occupied the 3rd floor. The last resident of the house was Daisy's daughter, Frances. Affectionately known as Miss Daisy, she lived in the house with her female companion, an African-American woman named Annie Bess, who had been a chambermaid for Daisy's parents.
After her husband passed away and Miss Daisy's husband passed away, because their age was only 10 years separate, and they'd known each other for decades, and Annie Bess moved into the house. It was just so sort of interesting and very, 1940s, 50s Memphis, very unusual to have an elderly, white lady and elderly black lady both living side by side in the bedrooms upstairs in the mansion.
Daisy Neely Mallory died in 1969 at the age of 98, having witnessed nearly a century of changes to the world surrounding her home. She wanted the house preserved as a museum, and today it stands as one of the finest examples of Victorian-era residences in the country.
This is one place that's been here unchanged for 160 years. It is a moment captured in time.
In 1845, Amos Woodruff came to Memphis with the intent of establishing a Western market for his New Jersey carriage-making business. He was already a successful businessman, but he saw great opportunities in this city. Over the course of the next 25 years, he would invest in 2 banks, the Memphis and Ohio Railroad, an insurance company, the Overton Hotel, a cotton compress firm, and a lumber company. With his wealth, he built a grand French Victorian mansion on Adams Avenue in 1870, and he built it for his wife.
Her name was Phoebe High Woodruff. She was never quite content to be dragged down here to Memphis, Tennessee, which was basically a very rough river town. The story goes, and I like to think that he finally decided to build a home for Phoebe that she would feel was her own. She was away from the stink downtown, because it was really nasty. I mean, there were brothels that operated, the river ruffians that were all over the riverfront area, and the filth, basically.
Construction of the house took only 18 months, an extremely short time frame for the era. Typical of this Gilded Age in the late 19th century, the home features French Victorian architecture.
And this was the style of home that was being preferred at the time. for the wealthy, the elite. The several the characterized, characteristic features, the mansard roof, the tower feature, things like that.
There are a total of 9 bedrooms in the house. The 2 on the ground floor are accompanied by parlors. 4 bedrooms are on the 2nd floor, and 3 more, plus a small parlor, on the 3rd floor. Throughout the house, you'll find many interesting features, like the large downstairs parlor and a small music room adjacent to it.
When you look at the time frame of when the home was built and look at Mr. Woodruff and his background, it was very high Victorian style. A music chamber would have been in order, the music parlor, but it was a way of segregating the guests. You did not want those musicians, which at that time were not what we're used to as musicians. They were hired staff. We want to hear your beautiful music, but we're going to put you in this separate room because we do not want you to mingle with the important people.
The furniture in the rooms is period correct, but only a few pieces can be traced to either the Woodruff or Fontaine families, like this settee or these chairs that sit by the front door. The walls today are very plain, but that wouldn't have been the case when the families lived here.
Stenciling on walls, painting on walls, papering on walls was very common in homes like this. Ceilings would have been highly decorative. We have a remarkable example of that in the ballroom, that the scene that's painted on the ballroom.
The late 19th century was the Gilded Age, and ornate detail was everywhere in the house, even the terracotta cornice work in the dining room.
It is said that it used to be, that entire piece used to be in different shades of green with a wonderful gold wash over it, which was very common. They loved that gilded look, the gold rubbing.
As one of the wealthiest families in Memphis, both the Woodruffs and the Fontaines kept a small staff of Irish immigrants who served as butlers, cooks, and nannies. Since the house was built after the Civil War, no slaves worked on the premises. One of the most unusual features of the house is the location of the kitchen. Most houses of the era had detached kitchens away from the main house for reasons of fire safety and comfort from heat. Amos Woodruff put the kitchen in the house to please his wife.
Phoebe, she liked to cook. Obviously she would not have done it on a regular basis as they would have employed a cook. Maybe it was a nice stress reliever.
Of course, no old mansion is complete without a good ghost story. Tragically, Molly Woodruff lost her first child shortly after birth, followed 3 months later by the death of her husband. Years later, she remarried, only to lose another child at birth. Although Molly didn't die in the house, it is said her spirit can still be felt in the Rose Room.
But there's been talk of humming, crying, out and out, very sad wailing, crying, and then soft, muffled sobs, indentions on her bed as though someone was either sitting there or lying there.
In 1878, a yellow fever epidemic struck the city. Thousands of people evacuated Memphis, many never returned. Mr. Woodruff's business interests took a severe hit as the Memphis economy crumbled.
There were many businessmen that suffered financial losses that could never be recouped. Mr. Woodruff being one of those, and because he had already given so much of his personal fortune, that proved to be a detriment because his businesses were, everything was kind of at a standstill. Memphis lost its city charter. We almost ceased to exist as a city. It was a barren ghost town.
With his fortune dwindling, Amos Woodruff downsized, literally swapping homes with Noland Fontaine.
He sold to the Fontaines really for what we could refer to as a bargain basement price. All told, they estimated that to have the home built, he paid around $12,600 for the lot and around $40 to $45, possibly $50 in construction cost. Well, he sold it to Mr. Fontaine for $40,000.
Noland Fontaine was already wealthy when he came to Memphis in 1861. He was a sharp entrepreneur who took his family's money and invested it in cotton, owning the largest inland cotton business in America. Shortly after coming to Memphis, he met and married Virginia Eanes. The couple were well known for throwing lavish parties in their new mansion.
The Fontaines were here for a very long time, moving in around 1883. Now, Mr. Fontaine himself died in 1912. Virginia outlived him by about 16 years, so she died in her bedroom upstairs in 1928. That put her family being here around 46 years.
Today, the restored Woodruff Fontaine House is a museum operated by the Association for the Preservation of Tennessee Antiquities. It stands as a reminder of a bygone era in Memphis history. As we get older, the list of aches and pains we suffer from often gets longer. The remedy can be everything from a simple aspirin to extensive surgery. But some of the over 50 crowd are using an all-natural treatment that's over 2,000 years old, the Chinese practice of acupuncture. Let's find out more about the pain-relieving benefits of acupuncture for seniors. What is acupuncture?
Acupuncture is the insertion of stainless steel, sterile, disposable, that's the law in Tennessee, filaments, needles, into certain areas of the body.
How does it work?
We have energy within us. It has natural pathways that were figured out over 3,000 years ago. These pathways have little reservoirs of energy, and those are the acupuncture points. And we stimulate those points, and that elicits an effect of energy flow, which leads the body toward balance so that symptoms will abate or resolve.
Do the needles hurt?
There is a sensation. The initial insertion is quick, it goes to the skin fast, so you don't get those little pricklies, but it is a metal object that could potentially cause a little bit of a sticking sensation. That can be a bit painful, but the sensation once we stimulate energy is usually a little bit of an ache in the area or a little tingle, and that's a good thing. That's an energy sensation, so we differentiate. If you do feel a needle, the prickle part, it goes away instantaneously.
What is a typical treatment?
Let's start with the first initial visit. That initial visit has an extensive interview and an exam. I then pick select points based on classic patterns, if you will, of energy flow, what points I need to stimulate. So I insert needles on those points. Then they would typically lie on my table for 25 to 30 minutes. Then after that, I pull the needles and we work out a treatment plan.
How many treatments are necessary?
Plan on a handful initially, especially if something's chronic. If somebody's had a condition for 20 years, it may take several months actually to get significant benefit. It's totally individual. Superficial things like an invasion or like a cold only takes 1 or 2 treatments to clear. Those are not deep-rooted imbalances.
What can acupuncture treat?
The World Health Organization lists over 120 things that acupuncture can treat. Again, any pain, whether it be headache, neck, any joint pain, back, any pain in all can be treated. Digestive issues can be treated. Insomnia can be treated.
What are some of the health benefits for seniors?
It really enhances one's immune system. That's a plus. The Arthritis Foundation mandated all their chapters supported acupuncture and Qigong because they found the benefit. So it helps with keeping, pain, of course, but keeping joints fluid, which in turn helps with mobility. A sense of well-being is enhanced 100% of the time, and that's a big plus. You know, this day and age, there seems to be so much. So if you can feel better, just in general, that's a plus to start with.
Can acupuncture replace pain pills?
It's becoming more and more accepted and utilized, and now even insurance coverage for acupuncture to get people off the addictive aspect of narcotics. That's the other thing. Acupuncture has never been shown to be addictive, but people love the benefit.
For more information, go to the website of the National Institutes of Health and search for their acupuncture web pages. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.